Breaking. Hold on to your seats, because what we're about to reveal is going to blow the lid off everything you thought you knew. Yes, you heard that right, Sierra. The queen of keeping receipts and calling out lies has officially promised to expose Mendeecees in the next episode, and trust me, it's not going to be pretty. How many times have we seen smoke but ignored the fire? How many whispered rumors did we scroll past thinking, probably just drama? Well, Sierra isn't whispering anymore. She's about to drop the kind of bomb that makes your jaw hit the floor. Cameras rolling, phones out, and the entire cast on high alert. The stage is set for a showdown that reality TV producers dream about but never dare script. Is this just petty revenge? Or is it the ultimate truth, unveiling the man behind the smirk we've all secretly doubted? And let's be honest, Mendes has played the too cool for consequences game for far too long. But now, Sierra's got receipts, evidence, and a hunger for answers. So buckle up, grab your popcorn, and get ready, because this isn't just drama. This is a full-blown, headline-making, truth-exposing spectacle that's about to go viral. And nobody is safe. Nobody on set could have predicted the kind of storm Sierra was about to bring. A storm that didn't announce itself with fanfare or drama but hit like a freight train the moment she stepped into the room. Her eyes scanning the lounge like a hawk assessing its prey. There was a quiet tension before she even walked in. The kind of low hum that makes every conversation halt mid-sentence. The clink of coffee cups forgotten as everyone instinctively knew that something monumental was about to unfold. Mendes, sitting across from Yandi with that trademark smirk, looked like he had everything under control. Blissfully unaware, or perhaps too confident in the illusion that he was untouchable. But Sierra's entrance immediately shifted the atmosphere, a subtle gravitational pull drawing every eye to her, her measured movements radiating intent and purpose. She didn't rush, she didn't fidget, she simply walked, every step calculated, and when she placed her bag down and set her phone on the table, it wasn't just an action, it was a statement, a silent proclamation that she had evidence and she was ready to use it. The lounge, usually a place of casual chatter and playful banter, felt suddenly like a courtroom. Every micro-expression magnified, every whisper echoing louder than normal, because the room instinctively understood that a reckoning had arrived. And make no mistake, this wasn't idle gossip or petty squabbles. This was a confrontation that had been simmering beneath the surface for weeks. A slow boil of secrets, half-truths, and long-ignored messages that now demanded attention. The first words she spoke were deliberate, low, but sharp enough to slice through the tension. Addressing a producer off-camera in a tone that suggested, if anyone thought this was for show, they were very, very wrong. And then she turned her focus to Mendes, the man whose casual demeanor had long fooled onlookers, but now was facing the scrutiny he could not evade. Every movement, from the tilt of her head to the way she locked eyes on Yandi, spoke louder than any raised voice, and the cast felt it. A collective awareness that the script of reality television was about to be rewritten in real time. No edits, no filters, just raw confrontation. Mendes shifted slightly, a twitch in his jaw betraying that beneath the mask of control, there was unease, a subtle acknowledgement that Sierra's evidence was real, tangible, and undeniable. The air in the room thickened, heavy with anticipation, as she finally spoke. Her voice calm but unwavering, highlighting the uncomfortable truths that Mendes had tried to bury behind charm and clever phrasing, pointing out how he had instructed others to remain quiet, how private messages contradicted public claims, and how those closest to him were now caught in a web of conflicting loyalties, unsure of what was real and what was performed for the cameras. Sierra's ability to stay composed while delivering revelations was unnerving. Her gaze never wavering, her presence dominating the room as though she alone controlled the narrative. And for the first time, Mendes looked unsure, hesitating, fumbling for words that might salvage the carefully constructed image he had maintained for so long. Yandi, observant and deliberate, kept her eyes locked on him, silent but forceful, embodying the weight of judgment that every viewer would feel watching this unravel. And the supporting cast reacted instinctively, subtle cues of disbelief, amusement, and anxiety weaving through the group. Their expressions telling a story of shock and anticipation without a single word being spoken. Sierra produced her phone, tapping it with precision, unlocking it to reveal a recording, evidence that silenced any remaining skepticism in the room. A voice note that captured conversations Mendes had hoped would remain private, messages that proved intention, deception, and the very selective truth he had been presenting publicly. The sound of her voice delivering context, The methodical way she explained dates and interactions made it impossible to ignore the gravity of what was being revealed, and the cast absorbed it all. Some leaning forward in disbelief, others quietly processing, everyone aware that this moment would be replayed in clips, discussed in headlines, and dissected by fans for weeks to come. The tension was electric, almost tactile, as Mendeecees struggled to respond, each word carefully chosen, yet revealing more than he intended. Defensive, flustered, and yet still attempting to regain a semblance of control, while Sierra remained poised, unflinching, allowing the evidence to speak louder than any argument he could muster. Every micro-expression mattered, the tightening of his jaw, the shifting in his seat, the subtle glance at Yandy, all catalogued and amplified by the unseen cameras, capturing the reality of a confrontation that viewers had only imagined but now witnessed in full intensity. The room seemed to contract, a pressure cooker of emotions and stakes, where every pause held meaning, every breath carried weight, and every glance could tip the balance between denial and admission. Sierra's strategy was clear. She was not here to yell or beg. She was here to deliver truth, to strip away pretense and force accountability, to ensure that what had been whispered and hidden could no longer remain in the shadows, and Mendeecees, for all his attempts at nonchalance, could not escape it. Caught in the crosshairs of evidence and the scrutiny of both Yandy and the watching cast, each moment making the situation more unbearable for him, his responses shorter, less convincing, his attempts to redirect or minimize falling flat against the mounting reality that he had been exposed. The dynamic in the room shifted with every sentence. The supporting cast now fully engaged, reacting with subtle gestures, murmurs, and expressions that told as much of the story as the conversation itself, providing context, commentary, and tension, amplifying the drama to levels that any producer could only dream of capturing. Sierra's composure, combined with the meticulous presentation of proof, created a spectacle that was equal parts courtroom drama, reality TV, and psychological warfare. Every calculated move designed to illuminate the truth, every pointed question, strategically aimed at revealing cracks in Mendeecees' armor. By the time the phone was returned to her bag, the silence in the room was almost deafening, heavy with the understanding that the confrontation was far from over, that the truths revealed were just the beginning, and that the balance of power in the room had shifted irreversibly, leaving Mendeecees exposed, Yandy contemplative, and the supporting cast collectively holding their breath, fully aware that they had witnessed a pivotal moment that would ripple far beyond the confines of the lounge, a drama so raw and intense that it would dominate conversations, social feeds, and headlines long after the cameras stopped rolling. Every eye followed Sierra as she moved with deliberate purpose, her presence commanding attention and respect, her exit as precise and impactful as her entrance, leaving behind a charged atmosphere, a room buzzing with speculation, tension, and the unmistakable sense that nothing would ever be the same, that the confrontation had fundamentally altered relationships, perceptions, and the very narrative that had been carefully maintained until that very moment. And as she walked out, heels clicking against the floor, the echo carried with it the weight of revelation, the promise of more, and the undeniable truth that she had successfully taken control of the story, leaving everyone in her wake grappling with what they had just witnessed and what it meant for the fallout that would inevitably follow. The tension in the room only intensified as Sierra's revelations began to sink in, and the cast, previously quiet observers, started exchanging glances that said more than words ever could, each realization cascading like a domino effect as whispers of disbelief and shock began circulating among them, while Mendeecees, now visibly rattled, tried desperately to maintain his composure, leaning back, rubbing his jaw, and forcing a casual tone that nobody bought, because everyone present could feel the weight of the truth pressing down on him, heavy and relentless. And it wasn't just the evidence Sierra presented, but the sheer audacity of her confidence that made it impossible for him to deflect, the kind of confidence that only comes from holding the ultimate power in a confrontation and knowing exactly how far the other person has cornered you. And as Sierra methodically outlined interactions, texts, and private exchanges that Mendeecees had hoped remained hidden, the reactions in the room were a mixture of awe, horror, and suppressed laughter, the kind of laughter that is part disbelief, part incredulity, part enjoyment of watching someone's carefully curated persona unravel in real time. And it was clear that the cast was both entertained and horrified, realizing that what they were witnessing was more than just drama. It was a masterclass in exposure, manipulation, and human behavior. all wrapped into a live spectacle with cameras capturing every micro-expression for maximum effect. Every subtle twitch and glance magnified to a point where nothing could be missed, and the audience watching at home would feel the intensity just as sharply as the people in that room, because the combination of Sierra's precision and Mendeecees' flustered defenses created a tension that was palpable and contagious, infecting everyone with the suspense of waiting to see what would happen next, who would crack first, and whether Mendeecees could recover from the mounting evidence that threatened to dismantle his carefully constructed image. While Yandi remained a silent judge, her gaze unwavering, her arms folded, and her presence alone forcing Mendeecees to reckon with the fact that the person most affected by his deception was not only aware but actively processing every lie, every omission, and every half-truth that he had spun over the past weeks. And as Sierra leaned slightly forward, presenting a new layer of evidence, her tone steady and crisp, her words cutting through the tension like a scalpel, the room collectively held its breath. Each member of the cast recognizing the gravity of the moment and the seriousness with which Sierra approached the confrontation. And even the production crew, normally detached and behind the cameras, could feel the electricity in the air, the kind that makes you forget to breathe, the kind that signals history in the making, because this was more than just reality TV conflict. It was a revelation of character, morality, and truth in its rawest form, and Mendeecees, for all his attempts at deflection, could not escape it. Each counterpoint he offered only highlighting the discrepancies between his words and actions, further cementing Sierra's position as the arbiter of accountability, the one person who refused to be swayed by charm, manipulation, or empty assurances. And as she paused briefly, letting the weight of her revelations settle, the room seemed to vibrate with unspoken questions, the kind that linger long after a confrontation ends, forcing everyone present to reassess loyalties, alliances, and the narrative they had believed, while Mendeecees' silence became more telling than any explanation he could provide. His attempts to regain footing faltering, with each passing moment, his smirk fading, his posture stiffening, and the tension in the room amplifying with every heartbeat, until even those who had been skeptical or neutral could no longer ignore the reality of the situation, because it was impossible to overlook the clarity of Sierra's evidence, the precision of her delivery, and the undeniable impact it had on everyone in that room. And as she continued to reveal new insights, including private interactions, contradictions in Mendeecees' statements, and the way he had instructed others to keep quiet while maintaining an outward appearance of innocence, the atmosphere became almost tangible, thick with suspense, anxiety, and anticipation, each revelation layering on the last, creating a crescendo of drama that demanded attention and reaction. And the reactions themselves were a study in human behavior. From raised eyebrows and tightened jaws to quiet murmurs of incredulity and subtle nods of agreement, all captured by the ever-present cameras, ensuring that nothing would be lost to memory and everything would be documented for posterity, or at least for the next viral clip. And as Sierra shifted slightly, leaning back yet maintaining her dominance in the space, Mendeecees began to grasp the magnitude of what he was facing. The realization dawning that his carefully managed image was unraveling faster than he could control. That every word he had spun, every omission he had made, and every relationship he had attempted to manipulate was now laid bare before those who mattered most, the people who had observed quietly until now, and the audience who would witness the fallout. And the room, charged with emotion, began to feel like a pressure cooker on the verge of exploding, because the stakes were higher than just reputation. They were about accountability, transparency, and the harsh light of truth. And Sierra's methodical dismantling of Mendeecees' defenses, her precision in presenting undeniable evidence, and her unshakable confidence created a spectacle that was equal parts shocking, thrilling, and mesmerizing, leaving everyone in that room, from cast to crew, unable to look away, unable to stop analyzing, unable to deny the impact of what had just been revealed. And as the minutes ticked by, the room remained tense, each second thick with anticipation, because even with part of the truth laid bare, everyone knew that the full story had yet to emerge, that the consequences of this exposure were only beginning, and that the ripple effects of Sierra's revelations would be felt far beyond the confines of that lounge, shaping relationships, altering perceptions, and igniting conversations that would last long after the cameras stopped rolling. With Mendeecees now fully aware that every reaction, every subtle shift, and every silence would be scrutinized, analyzed, and dissected, and that he could no longer hide behind charm or composure, because the power dynamic had irrevocably shifted, Sierra was in control of the narrative, and the room, electrified with suspense and the raw energy of exposure, hung on every word, every glance, and every movement, waiting, watching, and knowing that this was only the beginning of a confrontation that would leave no stone unturned, no truth undiscovered, and no ego unscathed. And with that realization, the atmosphere remained charged. A tangible force of anticipation and tension, the kind that marks a defining moment in any story, a moment that would not be forgotten. And as Sierra leaned forward one last time, her gaze unwavering, the room collectively held its breath, fully aware that what had been revealed so far was only the tip of the iceberg, and that the implications would continue to unfold in ways that nobody could yet predict. The room remained electric with tension as Sierra's exit left a void that was impossible to ignore. Every gaze still fixed on Mendeecees, who sat frozen, his mind racing through explanations, excuses, and desperately imagined defenses. But the damage had been done, his carefully maintained facade crumbling under the weight of undeniable truth and the realization that every move, every word, every attempt to control the narrative had been exposed in front of everyone who mattered. And as Yandy returned, her stride purposeful and unwavering, the atmosphere intensified, the air thick with anticipation. Every person present acutely aware that the story was far from over, and that the next moments would determine not just Mendeecees' reputation but the dynamics of power, trust, and influence in the room. Her eyes locked on him, cold, unflinching, silently demanding honesty, and Mendeecees, now stripped of his casual bravado, could feel the room pressing in, every second stretching, amplified by the knowledge that cameras captured everything, broadcasting the confrontation in real time for the world to scrutinize, dissect, and debate. And as Sierra's revelations replayed in everyone's mind, Mendeecees attempted to justify his actions, fumbling through words that sounded hollow and rehearsed, trying desperately to convince Yandy, the cast, and even himself that his intentions were innocent. That context would make it all understandable, but the evidence was undeniable. The recordings, the messages, and the inconsistencies in his story creating a wall that no amount of charm could penetrate. And the cast, once hesitant, now leaned in, their expressions a mix of curiosity, disbelief, and quiet vindication, realizing that they were witnessing the unmasking of a persona that had long been carefully curated for public perception, but never truly reflected reality. And as Mendeecees finally admitted to the scope of his actions, the silence in the room was deafening, the gravity of his confession hanging in the air, heavy and oppressive, while the subtle glances exchanged between cast members spoke volumes. Judgments rendered without a word, opinions formed in seconds, and the collective understanding that this was more than a personal dispute, more than petty drama. It was a revelation that would resonate far beyond this room, sparking conversations, debates, and speculation that would ripple through social media, gossip forums, and fan pages with the speed of wildfire. And as Yandy absorbed everything, her expression unreadable but her posture commanding, Mendeecees realized that he could no longer dictate the narrative, that every action moving forward would be scrutinized, every choice questioned, and every attempt to manipulate or redirect attention would be met with the combined awareness and judgment of those in the room. And the tension escalated further as Sierra, still just outside, remained a looming presence, her actions and words already setting the stage for the next revelation, the next layer of truth that would unfold and force every participant to confront not only Mendeecees but themselves, their loyalties, and their complicity. And as the minutes ticked by, the room remained frozen in a mixture of suspense and anticipation, every subtle shift of Mendeecees' hands, every flicker of his gaze, and every micro-expression dissected silently by Yandy, the cast, and the production crew, creating a scene that was as much about psychological power as it was about exposure, manipulation, and accountability. And Mendeecees, aware of his increasingly precarious position, began to sweat, the calm he had projected for so long now evaporating under the relentless scrutiny and the weight of Sierra's evidence. And as he tried one last time to regain control, Yandy cut through with a steady, unwavering statement, declaring that she was done allowing others to shape her understanding of events, that she demanded transparency, and that the era of half-truths and omissions ended here, leaving Mendeecees with no room to maneuver, no safe exit, and no audience to charm. And the cameras, capturing every detail, every subtle tension, every shift in posture, ensured that nothing would be missed, nothing forgotten, and nothing could be misrepresented, cementing the confrontation as a pivotal moment that would define relationships, reputations, and narratives for weeks. months, or even years to come. And as Mendeecees exhaled sharply, finally acknowledging that the situation had escalated beyond control, the room collectively sensed the inevitability of fallout, the potential for ruptures, resignations, public statements, and possibly even legal scrutiny. While Sierra, still just outside, had already planted the seeds for the next revelation, her strategy precise, deliberate, and unrelenting. And as Yandy and Mendeecees continued their tense exchange, the room seemed to shrink, compressed by the weight of truth, the gravity of exposure, and the unflinching scrutiny of those around them. Every word, every hesitation, every glance carrying significance far beyond the immediate moment. And as Mendeecees attempted to rationalize, justify, and deflect, it became increasingly clear that he had underestimated not only Sierra's preparation but also Yandy's resolve, the cast's awareness, and the camera's unyielding gaze. And the result was a perfect storm of suspense, tension, and psychological pressure, leaving Mendeecees in a rare and vulnerable position, stripped of control, exposed, and acutely aware that the consequences of this confrontation would extend far beyond the walls of that lounge. And as Sierra's footsteps echoed faintly from outside, a reminder of the next phase of revelations, the room remained suspended in a heightened state of drama, every participant aware that the narrative had shifted irreversibly, that the power dynamic had been realigned, and that the unfolding story was now in the hands of those willing to confront truth without fear or hesitation, leaving Mendeecees, and anyone watching, in no doubt that this was not just a confrontation, not just a scandal, but a masterclass in accountability, exposure, and the undeniable potency of truth wielded without compromise. So, what do you think is really going on behind the scenes? Could Mendeecees have been playing everyone all along, or is there more to this story that we haven't even uncovered yet? The question now isn't just what happened, it's what happens next. And honestly, we're all on the edge of our seats, waiting for Sierra to drop the next bombshell. You've seen how quickly the truth can shift everything in this room. How every little secret, every hidden conversation, every supposedly minor interaction can explode into a full-blown scandal when the right person decides to reveal it. And if you think this was the peak, trust me, it's just the beginning. So, we need your thoughts, your theories, and your hot takes. Who do you think is really at fault? Who's hiding more than they're admitting? And how far will Sierra go to make sure the world sees the truth? Drop your comments below, share this video with everyone who loves a little drama, and hit that like button if you're ready for more shocking revelations. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next episode promises even more explosive moments, and you won't want to miss a single second of the chaos. Stay tuned, the storm is just getting started.